homeopathics is quite different than a person that's called a naturopath. And we are definitely much different than a person that there are doctors that study homeopathics and become homeopaths, but most doctors are in the what we call allopathy area. So that's what divides us. So if you ever hear that word allopathy, that's more of the traditional medicine that you will get for that. A naturopath, however, he is a person that does deal, or she deals in the natural health area or arena, but they usually are studying many different things. Now in my office we do different things, but my expertise is in homeopathy. So if you went to see a naturopath, you can get homeopathics, but you're probably going to see other things, a lot of more herbals and things mixed in too. So that hopefully will help you understand a little bit differences. Now when we deal with homeopathics, we're dealing with what I call energy medicine, because it's not so much chemical. When we take supplements such as digestive enzymes or herbals, we're still dealing with the chemical. The physical part of our body it's acting on as a chemical substance. When we go to homeopathy, we are now in the energetic world or the electromagnetic world, and that acts upon that second layer of our body that we would call, we have our body, we have our soul, and then our spirit. We are made up of three parts, but that soul layer that's more energetic. And that's where homeopathy or homeopathics will work, because they're energetic. They also are not chemical in their substance. They are more of a communication device that gives to your body, so that your body then can change or take over to do something it's not doing, or something it has been doing too much. And so it's communicating more to your energetic body instead of the chemical or physical part that you would with other supplements or medications and things like that. Okay? Now homeopathy began back in the 1800s by a man named Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. He was a medical doctor, but he was very discouraged because in that time frame they were doing emetics, laxatives, things to cause people to throw up. They were doing bloodletting. If you ever heard of that, they'd actually open up veins and let blood out, because they thought if they could drain enough junk out of the body, then you would drain out the bad stuff. Well, a lot of people died, so they should have been able to figure out that that didn't work. But Dr. Hahnemann at the time was involved with that. He thought it was barbaric. He said, I am not going to be a doctor anymore. And he went into research and actually translating medical books from different languages. He was a German, and he was obviously very proficient in languages. But by doing that, then he started seeing some similarities by herbals they were giving, and of course a lot of the herbals at that time were their medicines. They didn't have chemicals like we have today as much, but he started seeing some things that were acting on people, especially in the militaries where he was working. And he started deducting some things. Okay, when they're giving this, it has this action. And this was completely different, again, than what the medical people were doing, because they assumed that opposites cured. If you had one thing here, if you did the opposite, it was going to cure it. Well, he saw that that was not true. He said, if you give something that's similar, it's going to create forcing the body to push forward, to create like a bigger or a more aggressive symptom. And when it did that, it actually cured something. Now, I like to start off by this, and some of you probably have heard this, but I like to start off talking about a burn, because this will give this concept better than anything. If most of you are ladies, so except for Carl, he's helping us out tonight. What if we get a burn? What's the first thing we want to do? I mean, or what we've been told to do? Help me out. Put it cold water. Put it under cold water. What's some other things they tell us to do?
Put butter on it.
Butter on it, okay? What else? Anything else?
Ice.
Pardon?
Ice.
Ice, yes. Cold ice. Okay.
Aloe plants.
Aloe plant, okay? Okay, so some of those are good and some of them are very, very bad. I'll go with the aloe plant. I never understood the... What?
Flour.
Flour? That might be one with a paste, maybe?
No, just
flour itself.
Flour.
Never
Just
heard that
flour.
one. That's a new one. Maybe it does work. Okay. I'll agree with the aloe plant. That's good. That's a medicinal plant that does help with burns. But I do not use cold in any way on a burn. And here's why. When you put cold on a burn, you already have burned yourself. Your body's saying, I'm hot. I need to cool this down. But if you put cold on it, what happens? It turns the communication around, and then the body's saying, oh no, now it's cold. I got to heat up. So now you have heat, and your body's trying to force heat from onto the burn, and that will not help because your body's going to do opposite. But if you put warm or hot on that burn, you'll be amazed at how quickly it will take the sting out. Now, it's going to hurt when you put it under the hot water, I'll tell you right now. It does hurt when you put it on there, but very quickly, then your body is going to say, oh, it's hotter now. I need to cool it down. So it's forcing that concept. Again, all the homeopathic stuff that we're going to talk about, again, remember, is getting your body to do something to help itself. We're not doing the opposite to try to create from the outside. We're trying to get the inside of the body itself to fix the problem or go there. So on a burn, you should use warm to hot. And I know this is a hard concept because we've lived in the world of cold for so long. But if you will ever try that, you'll be amazed and you'll never use cold again. So this is what we're talking about, similars. You got hot, you apply hot to force the body to do that. Another one we can use is, we'll talk about a lot of different things tonight. If you go out and get poison ivy, the first thing you would not want to do is put more poison ivy into your body, okay? But that's exactly what homeopathics does. You give a person poison ivy. Now we don't ask you to go out there and get some leaves and chew on them, okay? We're going to give it differently than the whole strength as we see. But poison ivy can cure poison ivy used correctly. If you use something that's unsimilar, like so often they will give like creams and things like that, what you're doing is you're putting that on the surface and it's going to suppress it into your body, and it has to come out and resolve. That's how it cures. If you put something on it and it's a suppressive agent, especially steroids, let me say that again, steroids are always going to be suppressive. They push it into your system, they don't make it go away. Now you think it's gone because what was on the surface now is gone, but it usually pushes it in your system. It's able to go farther in and actually can go to the organs and glands and become a worse problem than it was even when it was on your skin. So we can use poison ivy in homeopathic preparation to help with that, and we'll be talking about some other things as we go along. So again, similar cures, not opposites. So we're trying to get you in a different mindset tonight, if nothing else, okay? Yes, ma'am?
Isn't that how they make vaccines? They take, like for the flu, they take a dead virus?
Well, the concept is yes, but the problem is they're using it in whole forms. So when you're going to get a vaccine, say, let's talk about now chickenpox, okay? They make the chickenpox vaccine, but the problem is they use the actual virus and a whole bunch of other junk in there, and they put it in there. But the problem is when you put it into our body doesn't understand the whole concept. And as we talk tonight, you'll see the difference when we potentize something. But that's what the concept was there. They just have not, I don't think, got it right. Let me bring this up too, just in passing. I will bring up different things that maybe aren't really homeopathic just to help you out. At this point, I will encourage you to be very careful now if you get a tetanus vaccine. Because when you go to get a tetanus vaccine, it's my understanding at this point they are not making tetanus vaccines by themselves anymore. They are putting them in the DPT, which they've given children forever. But they've decided it's just as easy to give a DPT to somebody that just needs tetanus as opposed to breaking it up now. So if you have a tetanus shot, they probably won't tell you that you're getting that. But ask and be very careful about taking that, because a DPT is tetanus, but it's also pertussis and diphtheria, yes. So that's what you're going to get when you get a tetanus shot. So be very careful about that. I'm glad you brought up the vaccines. It just triggers my mind of things. Okay? All right. So let's jump into the potentizing then, because that's a big part of what we do. Potentizing You start off with the herbal formula. Now, homeopathics are made from plants, animals, and minerals. They're anything basically out there. And we even have gotten to the place, some of you that come to me, that we can even make homeopathics out of other things, even your own body. We can use your body and make a homeopathic of it and give it back to you to help heal. But mostly, if you use true homeopathic, it's going to be animals, plants, and minerals, okay? And how they make homeopathics then, they would take the substance, and let's go back and use like the poison ivy. Rustox, that's what it is in Latin. Most of the homeopathics you're going to see are in the Latin name. So they might not be familiar with you, but hopefully as you use some of the more common ones, you'll get to know them better. So they take the poison ivy plant, and they usually will make a tincture out of that. That's making it into a liquid form. That means that you're going to put it in they're going to put it in the way we make it is mason jar. You put alcohol in it. We use vodka because we want a 50-50 consistency of alcohol and water, and vodka is already that. So you can use that, fill up that mason jar. If you're using fresh, we fill up the jar. If we use powder, it's a quarter to the jar. But we let that sit anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, and that becomes what we call the mother tincture when we make that. We will strain off the powder or the herbs, and we have just liquid, and that's called mother tincture. That's when you're talking about herbals, that's usually what you're going to get if you went into an herbal store and bought something. Now, to make that homeopathic, we're going to take 1 drop out of that jar, and we're going to mix it with either 10 or 9 or 99 drops of alcohol water. Now, that will either give us an X potency, X meaning 10, C meaning 100, we'll use 100. So now we have 1 drop to, we'll use 100 because that's the most common that I use, to 99 drops. That becomes a 1C potency. Okay, so you see we've diluted it a whole lot already. 1 drop to 99. There is one other thing we do when we make homeopathic remedies, because a big part of this, again, because that communication that's coming off the original information is what we have to put into the new liquid. And we call that succusing. If you've ever seen anybody hitting a bottle on their hand, that's shaking with impact or energizing that or imprinting the information from the original into the new water alcohol substance. I always like to say, you know, God really, of course He's God, He really knew what He was talking about when He created water, because water has a potential that nothing else in this world has. Of course, we're made of, 85% water. The world itself is made up of water. Our atmosphere is made of water. And water has the best ability to hold information in that little tiny water droplet or cell. It can hold that information. And not only can it hold it in what you put in it, but you can transfer that energy into more water. You only need 1 drop to put in the other. So like if you had a homeopathic preparation, then you could, when you got down to a certain level, you could actually put more water in that bottle, shake it on your hand, and that information in the few water molecules go into the new water molecules. So technically, homeopathics can be used indefinitely, forever. You can never really lose that information unless you just use it up. If you use it up dry, then you don't have anything to tap into, and you'll have to start a new preparation. So that's one thing, that water has the ability to hold information. There was an experiment done, I think it was a Japanese man, who his last name was Emoto, E-M-O-T-O, if you want to look it up. But he did an experiment with water, and he made crystals out of the water, and he would affect change with the water. And maybe he would play classical music to the water, and he'd crystallize it, and he'd look at the crystals, and they looked like snowflakes, pretty snowflakes, and nice, I guess they have 5 or 6 points, I don't even know. But then he did other things, like he'd play rock music or something that was more intense to it. And when the crystals came out, there was no uniformity to them at all. They were just jagged and really yucky looking, I guess. They just looked bad. And he did this over and over again with different things. Now, a lot of times it was the person maybe that was doing the experiment that was saying it, giving off the energy of their connotation to. Like if we say the word love, most of us have a positive energy connected to that. Or if we would use the word hate, that would become a negative. But we ourselves can also encourage an effect on the water because of our own energy that is coming off. And that's the whole electromagnetic frequency waves that we're talking about. And it does go back to actually our body. The electrons spin all the way down to the atomic level. But it's something, even though we're in a realm that's kind of, a lot of people say, well, this is kind of weird, and it's unknown, and well, we can look at those things in a microscope, and now we can look at them other ways. But when we really see it, there's a very scientific basis for all this. And even when people want to reject it, they're rejecting it because, again, they just come to that place of thinking, well, it's too weird, or we can't see it, or we can't define it. But there is a lot of definition out there, and now if you go out on the internet, you're going to be out there with all kinds of stuff. You got to kind of direct your research, but there's a lot of stuff out there that can do that. So, but water in itself is really what makes homeopathics work, because it can hold that information and hold that signature is what we need to communicate that information back to our bodies when we're going to use that. Okay, so getting back to our potency then. So we've created a 1C potency by 1 drop of the mother tincture of the herbal to 99 drops of the alcohol water. The next one, we're going to take that one we just created, the 1C. We're going to take 1 drop of that. We're going to take 99 more drops of water and alcohol, put those together, succus them. When they're doing it in pharmacology, they're going to use 100 taps. We don't usually have to do that many times. But now we have a 2C formula, or potency. Next, we're going to take out that one. We're going to put 1 drop to 99 more. And so what do we have now? 3C, okay? And we keep going. Now, again, any of you that work with different homeopathics in the past, I personally like 30C. That's usually where I start. I don't usually go lower than that. You can. A real popular one, especially in health food stores, would be like a 6X. And that would be the 1 to 9. That would be 1X. The second one would be 2X. So you'll see a 6X. That's a popular one too, but that's just 1 to 10 as opposed to 1 to the 100. Now, which do you think would probably work better, an X that had the 1 to 10 or the 1 to 100? What's your ideas? What do you think? Just common sense would say, what do you think, which one works better?
1 to 100.
The one, what?
I would think 1 to 10.
1 to 10, because you have diluted it less, right? Right. And that makes sense, and in the chemical world, that makes sense. But 1 to 100 is more. Because, again, the reason why it's not the chemical substance that you have left, it's the energy and the power of that energy to transfer the information into your body. And the more you succus it, or the more taps you give it, the more powerful it actually is. And it's the communicating information as opposed to the substance. And that's what makes homeopathy work even more powerfully than herbal medicine, because it's a communication to that energetic layer, and it's just more powerful the higher you get. The more taps it's had, even though it's diluted. Now, once you get to 124C, that's called Avogadro's number. No, wait, maybe it's 12X. Well, don't hold me to it, but 24 or 12, it's probably 24X, 12C. That's Avogadro's number. That's in the world of chemistry. It says once you get to that point, there's no more of the original substance left. Okay? But if we keep going up, we're going to first get to, if we keep going C, when we get to 1,000, we call that a 1M potency. That's like 1,000 times it's been diluted in that 100. And we also can get to a 10M if we're going very deep. Now, none of you are ever going to use probably even a 1M, let alone a 10M. I don't even really advocate a 200C. Some people will use that. But that's kind of that place where you can start getting problems if you're just, playing around with it. But we go as far as 50M. And when we get up to 50M, the higher we go, the more powerful the homeopathics are getting, and the deeper they're going to act. And it goes against everything chemical you've ever learned, but the higher The number, the more diluted, of course, it's more energized though, because we're energizing it every time we dilute it. But that's how we get the potency. And for those of you that have maybe been in my office and you've seen me use some, like, 10 M's or 1 M's, you're thinking, oh, okay, that's why they're pretty strong. But I wouldn't advocate you using that. I'm not sure if you could even really get a hold of a lot of that stuff. But again, so you understand homeopathy, the higher the number, the more powerful it's going to act on your body. We're going to that deeper layer that we will call the energetic layer. At this time, then what I would like to do is move into more of the practical stuff, because I know this is kind of technical, but it's really important that you know about homeopathy so you can understand the difference between somebody who's maybe using herbals and somebody who's using homeopathy. On your sheets, we're going to go through that a little bit. As we move into using homeopathics, I've listed some what I call first aid homeopathics on that you'll be able to use. Now there are thousands and thousands and thousands of homeopathics. Basically anything can be made into it, but we're going to start out using some of these that we see on your chart. And I did bring a kit tonight. This is a homeopathic kit. This is a first aid kit that you might buy for your home. There are 50 remedies in here, and I believe all the ones that I have listed there are in these kits. Has everybody seen a homeopathic vial? I didn't even bring one outside the kit. Has anybody that has not seen one? Okay, let's go ahead and open this up for me. And let me I just want to show them those just real quick. So how do we know how these homeopathic works? That's the biggest thing. How do we know what to use when we have 50 remedies and we don't know what to use? Okay, so the first thing we have is something that's called a proving. And this went back all the way to Hahnemann, who started doing provings on what these remedies did for people. And what he did is take a remedy, he'd take a remedy or a substance that he made into homeopathic preparations, and he started and used that on healthy people. Because a person that's healthy and doesn't have any symptoms, you can actually create some symptoms in their body. And the only way we can know what these homeopathics are going to do in a body is to give them to a healthy person and see what happens. I'm glad I wasn't one of those people, because I'm not sure I'd want to do that. But Hahnemann's family were his guinea pigs, kind of like my family is at times. And, oh, why do we have to try everything? But if you can see how tiny those pills are in there? They're probably hundreds in this little bottle. Now these pills are nothing more than sugar pills. Have you seen those? These are sugar pills, but the homeopathic liquid has been sprayed over these pills. And there's hundreds in these. I always say this kit, some you'll probably never use, but your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will probably still be using that homeopathics, because you only need one of these little pills to do the job. Because the information in one of those pills is the same as the whole bottle. Now, if you've ever bought a homeopathic and they say, oh, take the whole bottle. The flu, the oscillinum, if you've ever used it, they say, oh yeah, just down that whole bottle. I'm like, well, you can do that, but you're going to be paying a whole lot more because you only need one. They're just trying to sell stuff. Wow. One of these tiny little pills will do exactly the same as the whole bottle, because it's not an amount. It's not like the aspirin. You take an aspirin, it gives you one effect. You take two, it gives you a stronger effect. Homeopathics don't do that. The only way you get stronger effects is move up in the potencies. The amount in here, this is a 30C. This 30C is going to tell your body the same thing, one capsule or one pellet or the whole bottle. Same thing. So you don't need to use a bunch. I know that's hard for us. Sometimes we just like to put a couple extra in there just because, well, a couple extra will be better. Really not, because again, it's a communication. And one is going to tell you the same thing. But these are very tiny, tiny pellets. These are the tiniest ones they have. And if you get, 3 or 4 or 10, that's okay. It's not going to change anything. If you get some of the bigger pellets, one's going to be fine, or the whole bottle. It's still the same. Okay?
No overdosing.
No, there's no overdosing. The only thing, when we'll talk about this, an aggravation, that you actually, if you go too high in the potency, you can create some of the symptoms this carries with it. that you didn't have. In your curing it, you could create some, but you know what? You're not really creating a disease. You're only creating some symptoms, and they're going to play off. So even if you did that, it's really pretty hard to do that unless you're going pretty high. Yes, ma'am?
How quickly would you expect to see a result?
Depends on what you're getting, about 2 minutes sometimes. If you got the right remedy, a right remedy is going to see results pretty quick. I'll talk about a few specifics here in a minute, what that might show, especially if you have kids and you want to affect change pretty fast.
Traditional medicines have an expiration, doesn't
They put them on there because the FDA requires it, but no. As long as they're not contaminated, they last forever. Because again, they're not really substance. But they can be contaminated. Sometimes people will put them too close to maybe essential oils. You should never put them in the same cupboard as essential oils to these because that's strong smelling and it can get into that and just contaminate. Or in the refrigerator if you got onions in there, things like that. But usually, as long as you're keeping them separate and stored correctly, they last forever.
Without your electronics.
Again, that's kind of like iffy. We're not sure. I know people have taken through, we use electronic vials and stuff through airports and they don't destroy it, but I wouldn't take the chance. I would always keep mine as far away as possible and not taking the chance because all it'll do is destroy the information. It's not really going to tell you, you won't know.
How will you remove just one?
Well, that's why I said it's hard. Now what I do is I take the lid off and I take it just, how you do salt or something real tiny little. You can do that. More than likely you'll get more than one, but it won't matter. And again, there's so many in here, you're not going to probably run out for a long time. But get as few as possible because you don't need more and then you're just using them up faster.
So you wouldn't want to put any extras back?
No. You never put it back in because once it's out, even if it touches your skin, it could be contaminated. You never want to put them back in. If you don't want them all, you can throw them away, or if you're making a water preparation, you can just throw them all in there.
Does it matter if you use the pill versus the dropper?
No, it doesn't. There's different action, and that too, I'm going to tell you, I like water preparations, so a lot of times I make these into water preparations, because then you can use them differently. Okay? All right. Okay, so here's what you would get. One little vial. There are some that are bigger, but that's what you'll know that one does the same as many. Okay, so on our paper then, as we start looking down through, let me see what my first one. Okay, aconite. Aconite is one of the top. Well, let me use arnica first. Okay, arnica. If you don't have anything else, you should have arnica. Okay, arnica works on bruises. It also works for like shocks. Arnica, you can get it in different formulations. I personally like, I'm going to tell you right now, I personally like this one kit because you know what? You don't have to go to the store and have cream and tincture, or not tincture, but water. You have this one and you can make your own. You can put this in anything like water and it goes farther. And why I like to do it too, when you use that out of that bottle, you get one potency, that's 30C. But if you put it in water, you can bump it up by, you probably won't go to the next because you haven't diluted it, to like a 31C. But as soon as you tap that up, the water, you are changing the energy and you can affect another reaction from the body. And especially with kids and the things we have acute. And I'll talk about, say, belladonna is another one that everybody's probably seen. Belladonna is a red lips, red face, red ears fever. How many have not seen that in your kids? Most people, you haven't seen that, you will. So if you have kids, you'll see it eventually. Belladonna is probably the easiest one to know what to use. But what you can do is, because belladonna is, it's aggressive itself because it's that quick fever that comes on, the kids go down quick, and they have the red face flush. But if we give them a 30C right now, the body's going to say, oh, okay, I can do this. I can use this information. I can use it. And you come back in a little bit longer and give them another one, the body's going to say, didn't I already hear this or get this? But I'll try to use it again. But when you get to about that third or fourth dose, the body's going to say, Why do you keep telling me the same thing? I already heard that, okay? But you can take it in water. You can tap it up about 10 to 15 times. And when it goes back into the body, the next time it's going to say, this looks similar. This looks like something I already saw, but it's a little bit different. Let me look at it again, a little closer. So you've just changed that 30C by energizing it a little bit better, okay? And that's why I like, if you think you're going to have to use it a second or third time, I would always use it in water. And all you have to do is just get yourself, a small bottle or a mason jar, put a few of those tablets in, let them dissolve, and then dose off of that instead of using the pills over and over again. And there again, do you see? What did you just do? You took your little bottle and you made it last a whole lot longer. Because again, if you have a family and all of them are getting sick, use the same bottle with the water. You don't have to give them the pills. So for one sickness, you've used a few pellets, and now you've extended the life of your pills too. So I like to use water. Another reason I like to use water is because, hey, come on in. When we use water, we can make like a topical homeopathic for it. Instead of having to take it internally, you can now start, if you have, like on the outside you have a bruise, you can take it internally, but then you can make a water sample, put it on a paper towel, put it right on the bruise, and you're going to affect even more change that way because it's now becoming topically.
Yes. How much are you taking internally? A tablespoon?
Well, there again,
drops?
think about the concept. Can you take too much? Really?
But do you want to waste it? How
Right.
much is enough?
A little pill? I usually say take teaspoons and tablespoons. And now that it all depends on the, like if you got a belladonna fever, or a fever that comes on very quickly, you want to be very aggressive. I will probably give I will say a child because you see that more often, a tablespoon, 5 minutes later give them another tablespoon, or 5 minutes later give them another. And usually by the time you've given them 3 doses that aggressively, that fever's going to come down. Now it's probably not going to stay down. It's going to bump back up in maybe an hour or two, but then you just start it out. Give them another tablespoon. Because again, you really can't take too much. Give them another tablespoon. But here's the key. When you see things getting better, stop. Because that's when you don't want to push it. You want the body to take over and fix things instead of the medicine. Because if you do, like I said, you can't aggravate, can't really hurt you. But say belladonna fixes a fever, but it also has in the mix that it causes urination. So if you take too much, guess what? It's not going to hurt you, but guess what? You're going to be running to the bathroom because you pushed it too far and you kind of taken on that symptom that went along with belladonna. Again, most of the time you're not going to hurt anybody. I'd rather be a little aggressive to help and not worry about so much of the aggravation. But if you do push it too far, that's why. So if you do that, every 5 minutes for an hour, you're probably going to be aggravated by that time. So as soon as you see some positive results, back off. You can always come back and start again. And again, like a fever is a little more aggressive, but if you have something that you've done a few times, then you usually can back off, usually maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And again, unless it's in something that's chronic and we're dealing with that, which it probably won't work anyway, a couple days is maximum, because by that time, that information is in the body, and the body knows what it's supposed to be doing. And if it doesn't fix by that time, it's probably something a little more, a bigger issue that you probably need to seek help for. Yeah. You can play with these. And that's why I encourage, when you start into this, you're going to learn from playing with it. You just try it, see what it does, and you'll be amazed. And you'll get to feel how things work. Go ahead.
Whenever you usually you put them under your tongue, right?
Yeah, that's best.
So whenever you give them the little drops of water, then you say hold
That's
under your
best
tongue.
too, because you're trying to get it into the membrane, and under your tongue, if it's there, it's going into the system instead of having to go through the digestive system.
Well, the water works better too.
Water
for
works
children.
better, yeah, especially if they're tiny, babies.
Yeah.
We were given some the other day of about a 2-week-old, and said, well, tip them back, we'll get them some.
Yeah.
Yeah, under the tongue is the best, but if the kids don't do it, it's still going to work.
Just tap water?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, whatever you're drinking, it's not going to be in there. Yes. Go ahead.
So you don't need the alcohol as a preservative in there?
No, not unless you're going to keep it a long time, and I don't even like to put it, because it's already got some, but I would prefer, if it gets contaminated, go ahead and start a new batch, because usually within the week or 2 weeks, you're going to use it maximum you're gonna should probably dump it out after that, and then just start a new batch. And I just don't like using any more alcohol than you need to, especially with kids. And most of the time, you don't even need alcohol in short-term things.
So are you saying you typically do need to give more than one dose, or?
With anything like that, like colds and flus and fevers and things like that, yes. And something that the faster it comes on, the more aggressive you can actually be. If it's something more like, like the poison ivy thing, if you're working with that, you don't have to technically be as aggressive with that, but you're gonna stick with it a little longer, because you're not gonna cure it. It's not gonna go away in a day. You've got to bring it to maturity and let it play off on its own. So instead of having poison ivy for 2 or 3 weeks, hopefully you'll have it done in a week. But it will still go through the process. That's the, again, our medical people have told us, well, I can get rid of this, but they're not getting rid of it. Most of the time, they're giving you creams and steroids that push it into your body, and all it does is leave the surface and goes inside. Doesn't cure it. And then it's going somewhere else. All right. Okay, so let's get back to our list then. Aconite is first for colds, first sign of cold, or a key element here is if, say, your kids have gone out and gotten chilled. It's the first one you'll use when they come in the house. Even if they haven't gotten a cold yet, this works amazingly well. If they've been outside, the wind's been blowing, they come in and they're kind of cold, give them some aconite, because that will ward off that cold that could produce. Now at this point, I'm not saying that we know germs make colds, but a cold weather can set the body up to a place to accept a germ or allow it to work in the body. So it doesn't give you a cold, but it can allow your environment to be more receptive. And that's where aconite works very well. That first sign of cold, if it's been 12 hours, forget it. It's not going to work. This is that first sign which mostly as mothers we don't usually get the indication, because it's usually 12 hours later, I don't feel good. It's too late then. But if you can ever get your kids to tell you, or if you can get them when they come in from being outside or something. Also, this helps with shock too, but arnica's better. And then eye injury for the aconite.
What kind of shock are you talking about?
This
Like
is kind
surprise?
of shock. Well, it could be emotional shock, but it also could be trauma. Like if you broke your arm. If you broke your arm, and I say, of course, we have to go to the hospital, but on the way, give them some arnica, give them some of these things that can be helping the pain and helping the shock part. And with aconite, of course, you never want to give an unconscious person internally, but there's where homeopathics is really great, because you don't have to put it internally, you can put it on the external. And so if you have somebody that's maybe in shock but has passed out, you can actually use this kind of concept. Spray bottles are good. I put stuff in spray bottles, putting things on the bottom of feet, because you have meridians go to your feet and your hands. You can rub them with the homeopathics, and that's also going to affect through the skin. Wrists are good because the skin's not as tough there. That's a good place to apply homeopathics if you can't get it internally that way. Okay. All right, arsenicum is good for food poisoning. That would be like just your basic food poisoning. Went out to a restaurant and you came home sick. I'll throw a couple things in here. Charcoal too. Everybody should have some charcoal at home, because charcoal will bind up everything in your gut and it will take it out instead of sitting around. So charcoal, you can get tablets or liquid, any kind of charcoal. That should be another first aid thing at home.
Now, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I wasn't hearing that. Tell us again, would you please about the
Food
charcoal?
poisoning. We're talking about food poisoning. Arsenicum as a homeopathic is great. But charcoal, like not the briquettes, but charcoal. Yeah, they would not be good. Suck on those ones. You can go to the health food store and they have charcoal in a bottle in capsules, and it's basically charcoal. It's black. But you take a few of those if you get food poisoning. You also, because they bind up everything in your gut, and they bind up the bacteria that comes with the food poisoning. It takes it out. So, you know, when you're sick for a week and a half, you're thinking, I'd rather die than live. This would be a better choice. And within 24 hours, it can be out of your body and you can be on your way. So,
One tablet?
no, you usually have to take that over a period of even a day. A couple tablets, 3 or 4 even. You just get it out as quickly as possible. But lots of water too, because that'll slow down your digestive tract. But lots of water will carry everything out while it finds it up.
I was told to take charcoal when I travel to
Yes.
prevent things. Is that
Yes,
true?
that's good. I would, especially out of the country especially, but in the country too, you would want to take that with you because different places you go, even in the country, they have different kind of waters, they have different kind of foods. And I personally believe, you know, this, I'll just throw this in, it's not homeopathic, but you know, people go through and have these scares about salmonella and E. coli. If you ate at a salad bar last night, you got E. coli and salmonella off that salad bar. The difference is maybe your gut's strong and it just went through you, where another person might have it and it's going to make them sick. You can't avoid it. You go out to eat, you're going to get it. And it's just if it's going to affect you or not. So having charcoal is a really good thing because you can, I mean, we can't know what we're exposed to, but you could have it one time and you're fine. But then another time, maybe your body is just in the right place that you're going to get sick.
So you should take it every day while you're traveling regardless.
I'm not sure I would do that, only because it will slow down your digestive tract, and I would hate for you to be constipated, because then it would hold other things. You know, there's always the good with the bad. So I wouldn't, unless you're, you know, if you're in another country and you're drinking their water, which I don't advise either, but that would maybe be a reason to do it, but minimal, maybe 1 capsule a day as opposed to several. But just know that you do have that bad effect of it too, with charcoal, slow things down.